We're back in the studio again this week, and I just want to give you a bit of an update on this space that I've created. Before I get into what we're going to do in this video, I thought I'd show you around the new studio and give you just a little bit of tour. Okay, so we're going to start with the end of the building. It's about 4 meters wide by about 6 meters long. In this corner we've got my desk, which is a bit of a stand-up desk. Also got air conditioning on the wall. Now what I've done with the air conditioning unit, I didn't want just a white sort of air conditioning box on the wall. What I actually done was I got some car wrap and I wrapped it, just some vinyl wrapping, and I had some left over, so I wrapped the desk as well. And as we go round, got a storage unit there. Also going to need to get some kind of more units to go in there. Maybe another desk, or not desk, but some kind of worktop that I can work on there. There's a giant beanbag. Don't know whether I'm going to keep that in here. And then as we come round, you'll see this space. So there's a nice comfy chair with some lighting above it. I actually customised those lampshades as well. They used to be blue and I sprayed them yellow or mustard colour. And then in this area, this is the bit of the chill out area. So we've got a sofa, nice swinging chair, and then you can look out at the view, which sometimes there's the cows knocking about. Some right in the background. They tend to hide. I think you can see them just in the background. That's a really good space out there to look out. So that is my creative space in a nutshell. But I thought in today's video, I wanted to do something with this cabinet. I just got this cabinet and I like it, but I think it's all a little bit too blue. I absolutely love the doors, the way that they look. It's like a 1940s or 50s style. But I want to make the top and sides just a little bit more thicker and a bit more of a feature piece. And because I've got some of the micro cement left over from the build of this building, the outside I done some cladding pieces with a micro cement, and because I love the texture to that, and I thought it would be really nice to complete the texture effect as a bit of a worktop and also running down each side of this unit. So I thought this would be a great little video for you to see me turn this into a bit of a custom piece of furniture that sits within the studio. So let's crack on. We're going to customize this, and hopefully we'll finish up with a really nice piece of furniture. So this was a big pile of timber that I had left over from the builds. Probably got a little bit too much, but I can reuse this for other projects. So the first thing was to measure the top, then cut some pieces of timber down to the width of that worktop. Here I'm just aligning a scrap piece of the cement board to the top of the timber. I just want to work out how that door is going to open against that cement board, so I didn't want it catching. So I was just really trying to work out how I'm going to be able to attach this to the worktop. Measuring up the sides of the worktop for the timber that run vertical down the sides. I cut all them pieces. And they're going to be screwed into place. So I'm screwing from the bottom up into the top of the timbers. Taking off all the doors at this stage, just to make life a little bit easier. I'm just measuring between the front and middle piece of the supporting timbers for the worktop to cut a template. That is the template piece, and I place that underneath at the top of the unit, and that will give me my guide to screw up into that middle piece. It's a case of just screwing all those pieces of timber to the underside of the worktop.
It's a garden, I'll stay for hours, so alive with wildflowers, so blooming all around.
I used 3 pieces of timber on the top, just a bit of support, but on the sides I actually ended up just using 2 pieces, which you can see here. This is just some footage showing you the back of the cabinet. I've just extended those pieces of timber slightly. Now I'm measuring up the depth that I need to cut cement board. When you're working with cement board, it's really dusty, so I do recommend wearing a mask for it at this stage. And I'm cutting down the cement board for those tops. Placing the top onto the unit, see how the fit is. It's a great product to work with. It's really versatile, it's completely flat. Here I'm just checking the sides all line up as well perfectly. So I just want to say the track saw is a really good tool for this because I've got a special saw blade inside which is suitable for cutting down sheet material. And then just double checking everything is aligning correctly. Here I'm just marking up positions so I can drill through the cement board into the timbers. So I just want to make sure I've got those positions correctly. And then it's a case of marking those cement boards so they can be screwed down into the timber. So it's back outside, I'm just marking up the cement board of where I want my drill holes to be. And then you're going to want to use a masonry bit to go through these cement boards because it's actually quite a hard material to work with. And then you want to countersink the screw head. So I'm using a bigger drill bit to use as a countersink. That was the best way of doing this. And it's a case of going through and screwing down each piece of cement board to the worktop. I don't know whether this amount of screws is a little bit overkill, but I do like to have everything secure. Here I'm just marking out where the skirting board is going to sit within the back of the cement board, so that's a recessed piece. And then it's a case of just screwing those front pieces into the front of the unit. Then just attaching the door just to make sure everything aligns correctly, making sure I'm happy with the way that the door's going to open. Next out comes the hoover, because I've made an awful lot of mess, and I don't like mess, I like to keep everything nice and tidy. And it's a case of moving this goddamn heavy unit into the middle of the room. Didn't realise how much weight cement board and all the timber does to this project, so I struggled moving that into the middle. And then it's a case of going around with some plasterer's tape, which is like a mesh tape, and we're just covering up all those joints. And now I'm going to be using some filler. This filler is a masonry repair filler. You can just use an ordinary internal filler, but this is what I had left over from the build. And it's just a case of applying that over the tape. Okay, so that's all the holes filled and all the joints filled as well. It doesn't have to be completely flush and flat. You can see sort of how rough those edges are at the minute. That will sort of dry rock solid, and it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't matter in terms of where the screws are as well, if they're not completely filled, because the micro cement that goes over the top, you do it in a few layers and it builds up to sort of 3 or 4 mil in terms of thickness. So you sort of lose all those undulations once you put the micro cement on. So I realised at this stage that the unit's going to be flush against the back wall, so I need some kind of recess hole for cables to drop through.
How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't.
I bought some recess hole caps just on eBay, and they can fit snugly within there so the cables can pass through. Right, it's the next morning. This is set really well, so it's ready to work on. I'm just going to sand the edges to it because there's some edges that are a little bit rough. But I just wanted to show you the next stage and what you're going to need for materials wise if you want to do a project like this. This is the project in question. It is by a company called the Polished Plaster Company, and this is their polished concrete product. That was a little bit loud. And essentially it comes in a white bag like that. And in order to get your different tones, you buy a toner. So that's the toner. They do 2 different levels of toner. I think this is the lightest one. And when I was doing the exterior to this building, I was mixing up a ratio of the toner to the concrete effect, and I was making note of how much I was mixing because there's different panels on the building and I wanted them to be a little bit consistent. You do have to make note if you're doing a larger area how much toner you're mixing up, because when you buy a big tub like this you don't want to mix up the whole lot in one go because it goes off really quickly. You'll never be able to work with it in time. I think you have a working time of about 25 minutes. When I was working on those big panels, it was just about enough time to do one panel. But what you want to do with this product is you want to layer it up to get that textured effect. And using the toner, so putting more toner in with one layer, less toner in with another layer, you then start to get that depth effect. So we're going to do that effect on this side unit. It's already looking beefy and chunky, but because this is an art channel and I like to experiment, what I'm going to add into the mix is some metallic fleck paints. So I've got a series of paints here. I want to add that into the mix and see if I can get some kind of, I want it quite subtle, but I want some metallic fleck in there, and I haven't gone super bright with the colours, just got some bronzes and some silver and some anthracite. So looking at what I've got left, this is left over from the building. There's definitely more than enough there to coat this. I'll probably do a couple of mixes and then I'll add some of that paint into the mix, probably on the second mix. The other things you're going to need, you're definitely going to need a Venetian trowel. Basically it's a small trowel, but all the edges of the trowel are slightly raised, and it allows you to really push hard with the product and you won't catch the edge of the trowel in it. So that allows you to polish it up onto the surface. You're also going to need a mixing bowl to put the product in, and then I use a paddle mixer just onto a big drill to mix the product up. So yeah, you're going to need one of them. You can mix it up by hand, but it's just a bit harder. Now I would normally mix this outside because it's a lime product, and when you pour it, it does give off some dust and you don't really want to be breathing that dust in. It's a really rainy day today, so I'm going to do the mixing outside, but applying it, I'm going to apply it inside, which is perfectly fine. I've put sheets down and I've just started masking taping off some of the units. I don't want to get this product onto the finished product of the unit. So that's essentially it. I'm going to leave a link in the description of where you can buy this product, and also the Venetian trowel. That was just on Amazon. The paints are just metallic paints as well, so you might have some of them knocking about. So let's get this product mixed up and onto the sideboard. Right, the easiest way I found to mix up this toner was to dry mix it first. Number one, that gives you more working time, and you can sort of try and gauge the colour at this stage as well. So I found the easiest way is to use a sponge to add water. Otherwise, if you tip water in, you might make it too watery. And then I'm just using the power mixer drill just to mix up that product. And just add in some water as I go. And you want to get it so it's nice and creamy, a bit like that. Right, here's the fun part, applying the actual micro cement to the unit. I'm just using that Venetian trowel just to apply that product. This stage is a little bit messy, so yeah, I do suggest protecting the floor if you're doing this inside. All you're really trying to achieve here is just to get the product on that as quick as possible. So you're not really worrying too much about how it's looking. You just want to get some coverage of the product on there, because I say this stuff goes off pretty quick, so you've got to work with it pretty quick. I've actually sped this video up. I don't actually work that fast because that's just an insane speed.
Helps me forget about you. You just came out of the blue. If you only knew.
So just by chance, which sometimes these things happen, I happen to mix up the exact amount to cover this entire unit in one pass. Just showing a bit of detail of applying it to the front here. Again, this is real speed, so you can sort of see how fast I'm trying to work with it. And as you can see, it's a little bit messy, so I've covered up the front of the unit just so I don't get any splash marks on the actual unit itself. But this product does clean off pretty easily as long as it's not dried. Right, at this stage I started adding some of that paint, but I've got to say this was a little bit of a mistake. The colour was a little bit too red, so I ended up going back over this. There is hints of it that you can see at the end, but it's nowhere near as strong as what you can see on the camera. Once you've applied the product once, I just go over it and start then trying to flatten it off. And you can really work with it at this point because it's starting to go off, and you can almost blend those corners into rounded corners with the Venetian trowel. Right, time for Live James to give you a bit of an update. Okay, this is where we are so far. So that's the first layer. Again, don't be alarmed. Everywhere that there's filler, especially across this joint, it will stay wet for a long time, but it's amazing how much toner I put in to how white that still looks. So that is one thing that you will notice. I suggest you buy the darker toner rather than the lighter one if you want to go for a bit more of a darker look. Again, this looks really awful at the minute, but trust me, I've done this a few times now. The end result really works once it all dries out. But we're going to go over the top of this with another layer. And although I've added the paint, so some places you can really see it, and it does sort of shine through. Big blob of gold about there somewhere. Didn't want it too overpowering, so I think once I lay the second layer over the top of this, it should cover up some of it, and some of it will come through because I'm going to do the next layer quite thin. At the end of it, I had a little bit of product left and I didn't want it to go to waste, so you know me, I like a bit of texture, and I'm going to try making a piece of art with the leftovers. I like to just bin the product. Right, this is some footage of it, not completely dried. I'm just moving it back in position, and I'm just recessing all those cables back through the holes. And in this unit, I've got the entire sound system for this room, so there's quite a few cables I'm passing through the back as well. So I thought this was a neat idea. I drilled out a section of that side panel so the cable could slot over and it could slot against the skirting board. Well, I was so eager to find out how this was going to turn out. I left it to dry overnight, come in this morning, and wow, fantastic. Really happy with the way it's turned out. The edges are dead smooth on it. It sits really well against the back of the wall. I've just jacked the front up a little bit so it leans back towards the wall a little bit. All that's left for me to do is put the doors on. But there was one thing that was bugging me. I didn't like the void underneath. So I had an idea for that. When we moved into this property back in 2020, we had a massive flood in the kitchen. Everything was under warranty, so it was all covered. But when some parts were getting replaced, I managed to salvage some of the kick plates because some of them were protected a little bit. So I got a piece of that kick plate and I've ripped it down on the table saw. You didn't see me do that yesterday because it was raining like anything out there, so it's really difficult to film. For some strange reason, my microphone died here, so this is editing James just to say I cut that down and I'm placing that underneath the unit. So we're going to get the doors on and then this should be finished. Oh, one thing before it's completely finished, I've got some natural clear beeswax, which I've never worked with before. I think you just put it on with a cloth, nearly dropped it. So I'm going to apply that to all the concreted areas on this and that should be this piece finished. So let's see how it's going to turn out.
Feel the warmth of the summer.
So I'm just applying the beeswax with a cloth and yeah, it will change the colour, but I also think it brings out the different tones of the concrete effect. So yes, it will make the product darker, so bear that in mind when you're working with this product. So this is the best bit. This is now fitting the doors back to the unit and we're slowly getting there with this project. Okay, there it is. So here's real time James to give you a brief update. Am I happy with it? That is the question. Yeah, this is something that I'm really proud of. I think it looks really classy and it looks like a really expensive piece of furniture. The actual unit I bought from Wayfair, so it's a website here in the UK that do a mixture of different furniture from cheap furniture all the way through to high-end furniture. This actual unit was on offer, I think, for about £150, so it was a bargain unit. But as I say, it didn't have that finished look that I was after. You're probably thinking, how did that picture turn out? Well, I've got it here, and overall, happy with that as well. So again, rather than just throwing the waste material away, I've created a piece of art on a piece of board. Now I'm going to actually frame this, and I'm probably going to add a bit more detail to this, so stick around in future videos for that because this isn't completely finished. Right, what you're about to see in a minute is the real polished concrete finished effect. It's really difficult to see on camera from a distance, but I'll get some camera angles where in a minute you'll be able to see that polished concrete effect. Okay, time for the finished shots. So this is definitely a project you can do at home. It was really satisfying to do and I'm really happy with the custom outlook of this project.